We want to quickly shift focus now to the economic impact of the coronavirus health emergency. And tonight there is cause for concern that COVID-19 will lead to massive job losses and make things worse for Kenyan businesses, which have already been staggering under a harsh economic climate. And joining us now to discuss this and more is the CEO of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Phyllis Wakiaga. Welcome to the program. Let's begin, Phyllis, with the very latest, which of course are the new measures that the government has put in place, tough measures in order to safeguard lives. For instance, all flights have been suspended effective Wednesday, with the exception of cargo flights. We have bars closed indefinitely, restaurants partially open, transportation, public transportation to operate at half capacity. What do you believe the impact of these measures will be on the economy in general and on Kenyan businesses?
Thanks, Anne. I think I want to start by saying, first of all, the reality is that we're dealing with something that is unprecedented. It's a phenomenon that is new, something that is very dynamic, and you can see it is changing and shifting every day. And we must take note that the economy follows the state of health. So the government putting in place measures is to ensure that they flatten the curve, because unless we are able to curb the spread of this disease early on, it will have even more serious impacts on the economy. So what has been put in place is really to ensure that we flatten the curve as much as possible, so that we mitigate the spread in the immediate term, so that we don't have long-term economic and social impact. So I think it's in order that some of these things be put in place for now.
Right, and then of course you need a healthy workforce for that, and we are reporting tonight that the number of COVID cases has risen to 15, albeit that those are not all Kenyans. When you hear that the government is now trying to trace over 300 people who may have come into contact with these new 8 infected persons, what does that signal to you in terms of the state of the labor force, if you like?
Yes, I think it signals that we need to quickly come in and deal with the issue so that we're able to ensure that it doesn't have massive economic impacts. Because with the shutdowns that you mentioned, the bars, the restaurants, all the shutdown will definitely have an impact on the economy, because it means that people cannot go out and work. It means that if there's production happening, that there's nowhere that those goods will go to. But I think even in a shutdown, I've been looking at the shutdowns around the world, there are essential services that must continue. Some of them are production of critical items, because people must eat. The hygiene product must still be available for the citizenry. And the government services, some of them that are critical in nature, like security services, must continue to be offered. So I think as we get into this lockdown, we need to ensure that we see what the essential services are and the essential things that still must happen, and ensure even within those that we take all the precautionary measures to curb any spread.
From where you stand, what services are likely to be most affected by this shutdown?
I think if you look at the shutdown, it's a global shutdown, as I said. And in order to curb the effects of the coronavirus, one of the things and the negative impacts is that you really have to stop movement, meaning that it affects the movement of people. That immediately affects our tourism sector. It has an impact on transport and logistics sector. So airlines like Kenya Airways and even Emirates and the other airlines around the world are very much affected. It also has an effect on exports, because our exports from Kenya to other countries are also not able to move. I think you saw a number of flowers being destroyed in Europe. We also have exports into America, whether it's our textile exports. So all these are affected. We carried out a study as Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and 87% of our members import their raw materials from China. So when there was a lockdown in China, there was an impact on the supply chain. There's also the issue of the distribution of goods around the world and the movement of people, because all that feeds into the global economy. So with all these things affected, the economy does get affected in the process. The thing is, it's happening globally. It's not only happening in Kenya. It's something that is happening across the world.
You've touched on 2 things I want to pick up very quickly on. Let's start with the fact that our supply chains indeed are interlinked, and you've given that example of China. Going forward, your members worried that they may not have access to raw materials for production?
The issue of the supply chains, yes, immediately when there was a lockdown in China, the issue of raw materials was a concern. There was also the concern of the cost of transportation, because the cost of a container shot up from $1,300 to about $2,600. So that cost of raw materials. What happened is people immediately started looking for alternative markets and trying to see how they can quickly get their products in. But it was definitely going to have an impact on continuous supply. And with the lockdowns countries are now putting in place, you can see different countries now going into different levels of lockdown. We are still carrying out a further study to understand what that means for the manufacturing sector in Kenya.
And what does that mean? You know, we're going to have a partial lockdown, at least for a month. so give it the next 2 weeks. Going forward, given the challenges that you've talked about in terms of even the pricing of transportation, etc.,
yes,
are you confident that you'll be able to have essential commodities remain on the shelves indefinitely?
As much as possible, what the sector is trying to do is to see that the essential products continue to be produced with serious protocols in place. We've worked on workplace protocols as the Kenya Association and shared them with our members. We want to see and ensure that these goods continue to be produced because, as I said, people must still continue to eat and really have the hygiene products in place. We are also working closely with our members to ensure that at the workplace level, the employees are safe and are able also to take precautionary measures so that we ensure that the state of health, even in the workplace, is dealt with during this period.
Okay, I have a final question for you, and I'm going to sort of bundle it up because we are out of time. But you mentioned Kenya Airways, and we know that its CEO has taken an 80% pay cut, asked employees to either take unpaid leave or work at half pay. Should we expect more of these kind of measures from corporate Kenya? And in terms of recovery post this coronavirus, have you been engaged with government in any discussions of what an economic recovery plan would look like, and what is it?
Thank you very much. First of all, I think for us to be able to make it through this period, we really must share the pain. It's a pain that employers will have to take, employees will have to take, and government will have to take. So we've been having discussions with government, for example, on some of the things they're able to do within the fiscal constrained environment. Employers are also looking at what they're able to do to ensure that there's continuity and the fact that they're able to bounce back even after this period. And employees, you've given an example of Kenya Airways, are even looking at things like taking unpaid leave, taking some pay cuts to ensure this happens. In terms of going forward, there's a big opportunity, I think, because the global supply chains are definitely going to get reorganized after what has just happened. So there's a big opportunity for us to produce more locally. And I think it's also given us an opportunity to internalize and look at the ability of Kenya to support itself in terms of production. So I think we really want to work with government. We've had a conversation with the different relevant ministries and even His Excellency the President to say what are some of the things we need to do and put in place so that when we recover, we are able to really bounce back and bounce back better so that as Kenya we become a manufacturing hub for Africa.
For you, manufacturing some of these core products?
Some of the priorities are seeing how we manufacture a lot of what we import into the country locally. Also how we manufacture some of the healthcare products that have come up. You've seen there as people are looking for masks, there are people even reaching out to come and saying, can your members manufacture ventilators and the things we need for health now. There's also the initiatives we need to do at a different sector-specific levels, whether it's tourism, manufacturing, that really make us more resilient in the event that such a crisis ever occurs. But also the ability for us to produce for Africa from this country.
Resilience is a key word. I'd ordinarily shake your hand, but allow me just to thank you.
Thank you so much.
Most sincerely for that. Phyllis Wakiaga, the CEO of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers.